Alright, well here we have the Bronco, and we've disassembled the front end already just to allow us to get in into the tight spots all around the front. As you can see, the front wheel well's in pretty good shape. I've already sanded a little bit on the clear coat where it has started to fail, and this rear wheel well is where I'm going to use my patch panels and the welding skills that I've learned by working on tailgate to try to improve the look of this. It's just not too pretty right now. I think I can do a decent job at it. I'm gonna aim to find where the rust stops to make as small of a patch panel replacement as possible, and I've got to get the patch panel closer to the lines that I cut off of this Bronco, because welding at a big gap is not easy. But that's the game plan for now. I'll start sawing on it and taking it off of there here in just a little bit and keep you up to date on what's going on. Alright, here are my patch panels that we're going to put on this thing. So, as you can see, they're going to just mount right here after getting it aligned, but that's a lot of welding, so I'm going to just take my handy dandy grinder and grind it till I find it, figure out where the rust stops so that I can just reduce the amount of welding and cutting I'm gonna have to do on this thing to get a fresh section of metal here. So wish me luck, we'll see what I find. Alright, well, I did a little bit of paint removal and found out the rust wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was. It's pretty much just at the top of this ridge where the trim piece was, and then just a little bit above it. So I've just scored a little line as straight as I could to start making my cut. Once again, as you can see, the patch panels are much larger than the piece that I'm going to remove, so if I end up messing this up real bad, I could always get another patch panel and give it a try again. So what I've discovered is I didn't have to cut too terribly much off of here, and from what I've learned, this is where water gets retained between the two panels, and that's what causes this to rust. So it looks decent. It's better than I expected. But what I'll end up doing is cutting out as much of this really bad stuff. Just go ahead and get it out of there before the cancer spreads. And then I'll just coat it with a rust inhibitor, spray it with some Rust-Oleum, and then leave it at that, and go ahead and put my patch panel back on. So I had a full-size panel. I'm cutting it down to try to make it smaller from the mistakes I made while I was working on the tailgate. I've done a little bit more research, and thanks to Trev's blog, which you should really check out if you want to know how to weld properly. That guy seems to know what he's doing, so shout out to Trev. I've gone ahead and tried to make this cut as square as possible, and I've rounded the corners because it's supposedly going to make it poke up if I left it at a tight square. So I've got it just the right size. I'm going to come over here, clamp it into place, and then take my handy dandy pneumatic saw and just go all the way around here, slow and steady, to get it a straight cut, flush to it so that the gap will be consistent throughout. So wish me luck. As you can see, the seam is fairly straight as far as the gap goes. Not perfect, but I think it's decent. We'll give it a shot, see how it goes. Okay, so I've tack welded the patch panel in place, and I've got to say it's better than I thought it would be so far. I've only had one slight area where I blew through the metal, but everything else looks pretty good, looks pretty flush. You can barely feel a difference from one top to the bottom. Shout out to Trev again. The jigsaw blade trick that he talks about in his video definitely is the ticket. You gotta do it. It definitely helps out. All right, I've finished welding. I think it turned out pretty good. Don't judge me for my welding, but it's pretty much all in alignment. Good, nice curve. Both sides should hold Should hold up pretty well. I'm sure there's some spots that are not beautiful, like this is where it was a little bit wider and I had to try to bridge a gap that shouldn't have been as wide. Overall, I'm happy so far. I don't think I can see any real bad warping. I think there is a little bit above it, but nothing I'm gonna be too worried about. This part gets painted white, so it should help hide it just a little bit, but happy overall. Well, I think it went pretty well. We'll just zoom in and see what it looks like. It's fairly smooth. The further along I get this project, the happier I am with the end product so far. It's turning out what I would expect. There's a few holes. I don't know if you can see them. A few holes in here I'll have to end up getting filled. Or fill again, but overall pretty good. The saga continues. I am working on the patch panel on the driver's side right now. I've ended up tack welding the very bottom of them because I was having a hard time getting the clamps to hold it in place where the contours of this wheel well would be consistent. So I tacked those in place and it was overlapping on the top, so I went through and I just ground down a gap that's pretty consistent. It's about one jigsaw blade width to get it around so I can pull it out if I need to, pop or do whatever I gotta do. I've also cut a little notch on there so that when I do get the weld out, I can grab it and pull it forward a little bit if I need to get the panel to come this way. Try to prevent a little valley from showing up. All right, I'm gonna start welding now. All right, I've welded it, I've ground it a little bit. Now it's time for me to check to see if we got any high spots. So I've got my handy dandy straight edge. I'm just gonna go around and see, sorry, I'm not the best videographer yet, if there's anything that isn't gonna be below the paint. So I'm gonna go through here. You can see there's a little bit more of a gap in some places than other. It's a little bit tight there, so, and this one actually is bowed out, so I'll get back and grind on this one a little bit more. Then it's time for body filler. All right, so I've ground down all the high spots, cleaned it off with acetone, and I'm getting ready to put Bondo on there. So the attempt I'm trying to make is, you don't want to put on cardboard because you can pick up some of the fibers. This is actually photo paper from my printer, and I'm just taping it on the board. It's a nice slick surface. I'll mix it up on that, apply it all over here, just make the best of the resources I have. All right, I've been sanding and sanding and sanding, so I've got the glaze on there. I started with 80 grit, moved up to 100 grit, then 150, and then I've just finished doing the 220 grit coat. So it's really starting to look uniform now. It's hard to tell, but we'll spray it off with some water and see what it looks like.
So it makes a pretty cool looking pattern, I gotta say, and it feels nice and smooth. So it's hard for me to tell right now where it goes and where it stops. So I'm happy. It'll get better when I sand the rest of it as well. So I'm good.